The massive shadow fell across New York City at exactly 3:47 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Maria Santos, a xenobiologist at Columbia University, was reviewing her latest research on extremophile bacteria when every screen in her laboratory flickered and died. Through her office window, she watched as a ship the size of Manhattan descended through the clouds, its hull gleaming like polished obsidian against the afternoon sky. Within minutes, every major city on Earth witnessed the same phenomenon. Colossal vessels materialized above London, Tokyo, Mumbai, Sao Paulo, and dozens of other population centers. The ships hung motionless in the air, defying every known law of physics, their presence casting entire metropolitan areas into an artificial twilight. The first transmission arrived 12 hours later, broadcast simultaneously across every frequency, every screen, and every connected device on the planet. The being that appeared was tall and graceful, with elongated limbs and skin that shifted between deep purple and silver. Its voice carried an otherworldly harmony, as if multiple tones were speaking in perfect unison. Inhabitants of the third planet, the transmission began. We are the Zephyrian hegemony. Your world has been selected for integration into our empire. You will surrender your governing bodies within 72 hours and prepare for immediate relocation to designated work colonies. Compliance will ensure your survival. Resistance will result in swift termination of your species. The message repeated in every known human language, each translation perfect in its pronunciation and cultural nuances. Within the first hour, global communication networks crashed as governments, military installations, and civilian populations tried desperately to coordinate their response. Dr. James Wellington, Britain's foremost theoretical physicist, stood in the Emergency Command Center beneath Whitehall, watching as military leaders argued about impossible scenarios. They're not just advanced, he muttered to his colleague, Dr. Sarah Chun, a quantum mechanics specialist. They're operating on principles we haven't even theorized yet. Those ships shouldn't be able to maintain that position without visible propulsion or energy signatures. Meanwhile, in the Pentagon's crisis room, General Patricia Morrison slammed her fist on the table. I don't care what technology they have. Nobody enslaves humanity without a fight. The assembled officials fell silent as she continued. They want our surrender in 72 hours? Let's see how they handle our response. Around the world, similar scenes played out as humanity's leaders grappled with an impossible situation. The ships remained motionless above major cities, but smaller craft began descending to establish what appeared to be monitoring stations. These vessels, each roughly the size of a city bus, landed in strategic locations and deployed metallic structures that hummed with unknown energy. In Beijing, Dr. Li Wei, a materials scientist, managed to approach one of these smaller installations before military cordons were established. What he observed would later prove crucial to humanity's response. The metallic structures weren't solid constructions, but rather complex energy matrices that seemed to phase in and out of visible reality. More importantly, he noticed they appeared to be scanning something specific in Earth's environment, their energy patterns fluctuating in response to local atmospheric conditions. The second day brought demonstrations of Zephyrian power that chilled world leaders to their core. Above Sao Paulo, one of the massive ships extended what appeared to be a simple beam of light toward a nearby mountain range. Within seconds, three peaks simply ceased to exist, their matter apparently converted to energy and dissipated harmlessly into the atmosphere. No explosion, no debris, no environmental damage, just complete molecular dissolution. Yet even as governments prepared capitulation speeches and evacuation plans, something unexpected was happening in research facilities and universities around the globe. Scientists who had dedicated their lives to understanding the impossible were refusing to accept humanity's apparent technological inferiority. Dr. Santos, still working in her partially powered laboratory, made the first breakthrough. The bacteria she had been studying, extremophiles capable of surviving in the harshest conditions imaginable, showed unusual reactions when exposed to ambient energy readings near the Zephyrian monitoring stations. Instead of dying or becoming dormant, they became hyperactive, reproducing at rates that defied biological norms. "They're not scanning for resources," she whispered to her research partner, Dr. Michael Torres. "They're scanning for something they don't want to encounter, something that interferes with their technology." As the 60-hour mark approached, President Alexandra Rodriguez addressed the United Nations Security Council via encrypted emergency channels. "We have 18 hours before their deadline. Our military advisors suggest immediate surrender to preserve human lives. Our scientific advisors suggest these beings may not be as invincible as they appear. I'm asking each member nation to make an impossible choice." The choice became clearer when observatories around the world detected massive energy buildups within the Zephyrian vessels. Whatever technology powered their matter dissolution weapons was charging for planetary-scale deployment. The alien deadline wasn't merely about political surrender, it was about species survival. But in laboratories from MIT to CERN, from the Tokyo Institute of Technology to the Max Planck Institute, human scientists were uncovering disturbing patterns in Zephyrian technology. The ship's energy signatures, while incredibly advanced, showed systematic vulnerabilities that suggested their builders had never encountered certain types of environmental resistance. Dr. Chun, working frantically in her makeshift laboratory beneath London, discovered that strong electromagnetic fields could disrupt the monitoring station's phase-shifting capabilities. More intriguingly, biological compounds, specifically those produced by Earth's extremophile organisms, seem to create interference patterns in Zephyrian scanning equipment. "It's as if they've never encountered a planet with such aggressive biological diversity," she reported to the Emergency Scientific Consortium. "Their technology is designed for sterile environments or worlds with simple ecosystem structures. Earth's biological complexity is acting like static in their sensors." With 12 hours remaining until the deadline, something unprecedented occurred. The monitoring stations began malfunctioning simultaneously across multiple continents. What had started as minor interference from Dr. Santos's bacterial samples had somehow spread through underground water systems, atmospheric currents, and soil networks. Earth's biosphere was fighting back in ways the Zephyrians had never anticipated. The massive ships above major cities began experiencing their first system failures in what their species assumed was millennia of technological superiority. Navigation systems flickered, energy weapons powered down unexpectedly, and their perfect formation began to drift as individual vessels struggled to maintain position. In the Zephyrian flagship above New York, Commander ZYX-9 watched his tactical displays with growing alarm. "The biological contamination is spreading faster than our containment protocols can compensate," he reported to the Hegemony Council. "This planet's organisms are exhibiting coordinated resistance patterns that contradict all our conquest models." His subordinate, Navigator Vel-7, gestured toward the environmental readings scrolling across their screens. "Sir, the natives appear to have weaponized their own ecosystem. Our ships are experiencing systematic failures in all major systems. Recommend immediate withdrawal to safe distance for recalibration." But withdrawal was not in Zephyrian doctrine. For 3,000 years, their empire had expanded across the galaxy by overwhelming primitive civilizations with demonstrations of technological superiority. No species had ever mounted effective resistance during the initial conquest phase. The concept of retreat was literally absent from their strategic programming. As the final hours ticked away, humanity's scattered response began to coalesce into something resembling a coordinated defense. Not through military might or technological superiority, but through the very biological chaos that made Earth unique among known planets. Every microorganism, every plant root system, every atmospheric bacteria was unconsciously participating in a planetary immune response against the alien invaders. The Zephyrians had conquered sterile worlds, ice planets, desert civilizations, and gas giant colonies. They had never encountered a planet where life itself would reject their presence with such fundamental incompatibility. Their technology, perfected for cosmic conquest, was helpless against an enemy that existed at the molecular level and fought without intelligence, strategy, or conscious coordination. When the 72-hour deadline arrived, neither surrender nor annihilation occurred. Instead, the first Zephyrian vessel fell from the sky above Mumbai, its crew unconscious from systemic life support failures caused by biological contamination they couldn't even detect, let alone counteract. The age of human enslavement was ending before it had truly begun, and the galaxy was about to learn that some planets were too alive to conquer. The first Zephyrian ship crashed into the outskirts of Mumbai with surprisingly little fanfare. Rather than the catastrophic explosion that military experts had predicted, the massive vessel simply settled into the earth like a dying whale, its hull groaning as biological contamination ate through its quantum-stabilized armor plating. Emergency response teams found the crew alive, but comatose, their bodies overwhelmed by an immune reaction to Earth's atmospheric composition. Dr. Rajesh Patel, Mumbai's chief medical examiner, performed the first alien autopsy in human history while the being was still breathing. Their cellular structure is incredibly efficient, he reported via emergency channels to the Global Scientific Consortium. But it's also completely sterile. They have no immune system because they've never needed one. Earth's bacterial diversity is literally poisoning them just by existing. Within 6 hours of the Mumbai crash, similar failures cascaded across the Zephyrian fleet. Above Tokyo, a ship's gravitational stabilizers failed when its biological filters became clogged with airborne spores from the city's extensive urban gardens. The vessel began a slow, uncontrolled descent that ended in Tokyo Bay, where saltwater and marine microorganisms immediately began corroding its hull. The London ship suffered a different fate. Dr. Chin's electromagnetic interference experiments, combined with the city's unusually high concentration of urban foxes, created a feedback loop that caused the ship's navigation systems to interpret biological movement as hostile spacecraft. The vessel spent 17 hours firing its matter dissolution weapons at pigeons, squirrels, and confused pedestrians before its power cells depleted, and the ship became little more than an expensive monument to alien paranoia. But it was the ship above Sao Paulo that provided humanity with its first glimpse of true Zephyrian vulnerability. The crew, desperate to regain control of their failing systems, opened their external atmospheric processors to filter out what they assumed were simple atmospheric irritants. Instead, they allowed direct access to their ship's internal environment for every spore, bacterium, and microscopic organism in Brazil's incredibly diverse ecosystem. The results were spectacular. Within hours, the ship's sterile corridors bloomed with fungal growths that fed on the vessel's organic computer components. Bioluminescent bacteria colonized the lighting systems, creating a beautiful but completely non-functional light show visible from orbit. Most critically, Earth's decomposer organisms began breaking down the ship's bioneural networks faster than Zephyrian technology could repair them. Commander ZYX-9, still trapped aboard the failing flagship above New York, watched his empire's perfect conquest dissolve into biological chaos. Council, he transmitted back to Zephyrian homeworlds, request immediate reinforcement with sterilization protocols. This planet's defensive systems operate below the molecular level. Our standard conquest procedures are completely ineffective. The response from the Hegemony Council was swift and predictable. Commander ZYX-9, your failure to subjugate a primitive civilization is unacceptable. Implement Protocol 7, Total Planetary Sterilization. If the planet cannot be conquered intact, eliminate all biological contamination and harvest the mineral resources. Protocol 7 had never been used in Zephyrian history. It represented the complete annihilation of a planet's biosphere followed by systematic mining operations. The fact that it was being considered for Earth represented both the failure of conventional conquest and the recognition that humanity's planet posed a genuine threat to Zephyrian expansion. Santos, now leading an international team studying the biological warfare implications, made a discovery that changed everything. The contamination isn't random, she announced during an emergency session of the Global Scientific Consortium. Earth's organisms are specifically targeting Zephyrian weaknesses as if they've encountered this technology before. The bacteria aren't just interfering with their systems, they're actively seeking out and destroying specific components. Her colleague, Dr. Torres, expanded on the findings. We've isolated 17 different bacterial strains that appear designed to metabolize the exotic materials in Zephyrian hull plating. These organisms didn't evolve these capabilities recently. They've had them for millions of years. Earth has been preparing for this invasion longer than our species has existed. The implications were staggering. Earth's biosphere hadn't just accidentally proven resistant to alien technology. It had been actively developing defensive capabilities against advanced civilizations for geological ages. Every extremophile that could survive in impossible conditions, every bacterium that could digest exotic compounds, every organism that could adapt to hostile environments was part of a planetary immune system that spanned evolutionary time. Meanwhile, the falling Zephyrian ships were providing humanity with an unprecedented technological windfall. Teams of scientists and engineers worked around the clock to reverse engineer alien systems before biological contamination rendered them completely inert. What they discovered revolutionized human understanding of physics, biology, and the nature of technological development itself. Their computers aren't electronic, reported Dr. Wellington from the London crash site. They're biological, but completely artificial. Living circuits grown in sterile environments and programmed through genetic modification. It's brilliant engineering, but it makes them incredibly vulnerable to any form of biological contamination. The revelation that Zephyrian technology was essentially advanced biotechnology explained both their incredible capabilities and their catastrophic failure on Earth. Their ships were not machines, but living organisms bred for specific functions. Their weapons were not energy devices, but biological systems that converted matter through metabolic processes. Their entire technological civilization was based on controlled biological engineering, and Earth's chaotic biological diversity was antithetical to any form of biological control. As the third week progressed, the scattered Zephyrian fleet attempted increasingly desperate measures to regain operational status. Some ships tried to achieve orbit beyond Earth's atmospheric influence, only to discover that their crews couldn't survive in the sterile environment of space after exposure to terrestrial biological diversity. Others attempted to establish quarantine zones on uninhabited islands, but Earth's interconnected ecosystem ensured that biological contamination spread through ocean currents, wind patterns, and migratory wildlife. The most desperate attempt occurred above the Sahara Desert, where Commander ZYX-9 ordered his failing flagship to attempt Protocol 7 against what his sensors indicated was a sterile environment. The ship's remaining weapons charged successfully and fired a full-power sterilization beam at the desert sand. The result was not the expected elimination of biological matter, but rather the activation of dormant organisms that had been waiting in the sand for millennia. Ancient bacteria, evolved to survive the harshest conditions on Earth, absorbed the sterilization energy, and used it to begin the most rapid reproductive cycle ever recorded. Within hours, the Sahara began blooming with microscopic life that spread across North Africa faster than any containment effort could manage. Dr. Amara Okafor, a Nigerian microbiologist studying the Sahara phenomenon, made a discovery that sent shockwaves through the global scientific community. The dormant organisms weren't just activated by the alien weapon, she reported. They were specifically designed to be activated by that type of energy. Earth's biosphere has been setting traps for advanced civilizations for millions of years. The implications were clear. Earth wasn't just defending itself against the Zephyrian invasion. It was actively hunting the invaders with biological weapons that had been refined over geological timescales. Every failed Zephyrian system, every contaminated ship component, every disabled crew member was the result of planetary biological warfare conducted by organisms that had been preparing for this conflict since before complex life had evolved on Earth's surface. Commander ZYX-9, now stranded aboard a ship that was more Earth ecosystem than Zephyrian technology, transmitted his final report to the Hegemony Council. Council, recommend immediate cessation of conquest attempts on Sol 3. This planet is not a primitive civilization. It is a biological weapons platform that has been preparing for our arrival for millions of years. We are not conquerors here. We are prey. The message would take 3 months to reach Zephyrian space. By then, the failed invasion fleet would be completely integrated into Earth's ecosystem, their crews recovering in human hospitals while their ships became the foundation for the most rapid technological advancement in human history. The planet that the Zephyrians had intended to enslave was about to become humanity's launching pad for interstellar expansion. 6 months after the failed Zephyrian invasion, Earth looked like a completely different planet. The crashed alien vessels had become research centers where human scientists worked alongside recovering Zephyrian crew members to understand technologies that bridged the gap between biology and engineering. The collaboration was born not of friendship, but of mutual necessity. The Zephyrians needed human medical knowledge to survive in Earth's biologically active environment, while humanity needed Zephyrian expertise to reverse engineer their fallen technology before it was completely consumed by terrestrial organisms. Dr. Maria Santos stood in what had once been the command center of the Mumbai crash site, now converted into humanity's first xenobiological engineering laboratory. Around her, teams of researchers from dozens of countries worked with Zephyrian survivors to decode the principles behind biotechnological integration. The air hummed with translation devices as human scientists struggled to understand concepts that had no equivalent in terrestrial science. Show me again how the neural networks maintain coherence in a sterile environment, Dr. Santos requested of ZYX-12, a Zephyrian biotechnology specialist who had volunteered to work with human researchers in exchange for continuing medical treatment. The alien skin had developed a strange mottled pattern since exposure to Earth's atmosphere. Not disease, but adaptation, as dormant genetic systems activated in response to biological contamination. ZYX-12 manipulated a holographic display showing the internal structure of a Zephyrian biocomputer. The organic circuits require absolute genetic stability, he explained through the translation interface. Each component is bred for a single function and must remain isolated from competing genetic information. Your planet's organisms introduce chaos into every system by offering unlimited genetic possibilities. It was Dr. Sarah Chun who made the breakthrough that would revolutionize human technology. Working in her London laboratory with Vel 7, the navigator from the crash flagship, she discovered that human cellular biology could serve as a bridge between sterile Zephyrian biotechnology and Earth's chaotic biological diversity. Look at this, she showed Dr. Wellington, pointing to a microscopic hybrid system she had developed. Human immune cells can interface with Zephyrian biocircuits while maintaining their adaptive capabilities. We're not just reverse engineering their technology, we're improving it by making it compatible with biological chaos instead of dependent on sterile environments. The first human Zephyrian hybrid device was a simple communication interface that allowed direct neural connection between human consciousness and Zephyrian biocomputers. The results exceeded everyone's expectations. Where Zephyrian technology had required sterile isolation to function, the hybrid system thrived on biological diversity, becoming more efficient and more powerful as it interfaced with Earth's complex ecosystem. Within weeks, research teams around the world were developing hybrid technologies that combined the best of both civilizations. The Sao Paulo team, working within the beautifully contaminated remains of the crashed ship, created the first biomechanical manufacturing systems that could produce materials with properties impossible under conventional physics. The Tokyo team, having raised their vessel from Tokyo Bay, developed water-based computing systems that used marine organisms as processing components. But it was the work being done at the Sahara site that truly demonstrated the revolutionary potential of human Zephyrian technological fusion. The desert, now blooming with ancient organisms activated by alien energy weapons, had become a living laboratory where the boundary between technology and biology had completely dissolved. Dr. Amara Okafor, now leading an international team studying desert bioengineering, made a discovery that changed humanity's understanding of technological development itself. We're not just creating hybrid technology, she reported to the Global Council of Science. We're learning to work with Earth's biological system as a technological infrastructure. The planet isn't just alive. It's been functioning as a distributed computing network for millions of years. The implications were staggering. Earth's biosphere, with its incredibly complex networks of chemical communication, genetic information exchange, and environmental feedback systems, represented a form of planetary intelligence that dwarfed any artificial computing system. By learning to interface human technology with this biological network and Using Zephyrian bioengineering principles as a translation layer, humanity was essentially gaining access to a planet-sized supercomputer that had been operating since life first evolved. The first practical applications emerged from the most unexpected sources. Farmers working with hybrid biocomputers discovered they could communicate directly with crop plants to optimize growing conditions in real time. Marine biologists found they could access the collective memory of whale populations to understand ocean changes spanning centuries. Meteorologists learned to interface with atmospheric bacteria to predict weather patterns with unprecedented accuracy. Commander ZYX-9, now serving as a liaison between human researchers and the remaining Zephyrian crew members, struggled to comprehend what he was witnessing. Counsel, he transmitted to the distant hegemony leadership. The primitive civilization we attempted to conquer has achieved technological integration levels that exceed our most advanced development projects. They are not using our technology. They are teaching our technology to evolve beyond our original specifications. The response from the Hegemony Council was confused and increasingly desperate. Additional messages had begun arriving from other Zephyrian invasion fleets, reporting similar catastrophic failures on planets throughout the galaxy. It seemed that Earth was not unique in its biological resistance to Zephyrian conquest. It was simply the first planet where the failure had been documented in detail. Dr. James Wellington, now heading the International Committee on Xenotechnological Integration, made a presentation to world leaders that redefined humanity's place in the galactic community. We're receiving signals from 17 different star systems where Zephyrian invasion fleets have experienced similar biological interference, he announced. The galaxy is full of planets where life has evolved natural defenses against advanced technological civilizations. We're not alone, and we're not primitive. We're part of a biological resistance network that spans interstellar space. The revelation that Earth was part of a galaxy-wide biological defense system against technological imperialism changed everything. Human scientists began developing communication protocols to contact other planets where life had successfully resisted conquest attempts. Using hybrid biocommunication arrays that combined human ingenuity, Zephyrian biotechnology, and Earth's biological networks, they sent the first interstellar messages from a planet that had successfully defended itself against galactic conquest. The responses came faster than anyone had expected. Within 6 months, Earth was receiving detailed technical information from dozens of civilizations that had independently developed biological resistance to various forms of technological imperialism. Each planet had evolved unique solutions, but all shared the common characteristic of using biological chaos as a defense against sterile technological control. From Kepler, 442b came information about fungal networks that could digest exotic materials and convert them into defensive organisms. Proxima Centauri b transmitted data on atmospheric bacteria that could interfere with faster-than-light navigation systems. TOI 715b shared techniques for using ocean ecosystems as distributed defense networks capable of coordinating planetary responses to external threats. But perhaps the most significant development came from humanity's growing understanding of the Zephyrians themselves. As the alien crew members continued their recovery in human hospitals, medical researchers discovered that the Zephyrians had not always been sterile technological beings. Deep within their genetic code were dormant sequences that suggested their species had once possessed biological diversity similar to Earth's complex ecosystems. Dr. Rajesh Patel, continuing his research with Zephyrian biology, made a discovery that horrified and fascinated the scientific community in equal measure. They sterilized themselves, he announced during an emergency session of the Global Medical Consortium. Sometime in their evolutionary past, the Zephyrians deliberately eliminated their biological diversity in favor of technological control. They turned themselves into living machines, and in doing so, they lost the ability to adapt to biological chaos. The implications for Earth's future were profound. Humanity possessed something the Zephyrians had sacrificed in their pursuit of technological dominance, the ability to thrive in biological chaos while developing advanced technology. The hybrid systems being developed by human Zephyrian research teams weren't just technological achievements. They were evolutionary breakthroughs that combined the benefits of technological advancement with the resilience of biological diversity. As Earth's first hybrid bioships prepared for launch toward the stars, carrying human crews equipped with technology that thrived on biological complexity rather than sterile control, the galaxy was about to encounter something it had never seen before, a technological civilization that had embraced biological chaos rather than conquered it. The Zephyrian Empire had attempted to enslave humanity, but instead had provided the foundation for humanity's emergence as a galactic power unlike any that had come before. 2 years after the failed invasion of Earth, the first human vessels appeared in the Proxima Centauri system, their biohybrid hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that served as both communication arrays and adaptive armor systems. The ships were unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Organic curves that shifted and evolved in response to environmental conditions, powered by biological reactors that grew more efficient under stress, and crewed by humans who had learned to interface directly with their vessels' living systems. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UES Synthesis, humanity's first interstellar bioship, watching as the vessel's sensory organisms mapped the Proxima Centauri system with capabilities that exceeded any artificial scanner. Around her, the bridge crew worked through neural interfaces that connected human consciousness with the ship's distributed biological intelligence, creating a harmony between technology and biology that the Zephyrians had never achieved. Captain, reported Navigator Chan, 7, her designation reflecting the human Zephyrian naming conventions that had evolved during the technological integration period. We're receiving biological communication signals from Proxima Centauri b. The planet's ecosystem is attempting to establish contact protocols. The first communication between Earth's Liberation Fleet and another biologically defended planet was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. Instead of electromagnetic signals carrying linguistic information, the exchange consisted of complex biochemical patterns that conveyed meaning through evolutionary context. The planet's biosphere was literally talking to humanity's bioships, sharing information about defensive strategies developed over millions of years of resistance to technological conquest. Dr. Maria Santos, now serving as humanity's first xenobiological liaison officer aboard the Synthesis, worked to decode the planetary communication. They're not just sharing defensive information, she reported to Captain Vasquez. They're requesting assistance. There's a Zephyrian occupation force in this system, and the planet's biological defenses are being overwhelmed by systematic sterilization attacks. The situation in the Proxima Centauri system was worse than Earth's intelligence networks had suggested. Rather than the simple failed invasion that had been reported, humanity's bioships discovered evidence of a prolonged siege. The Zephyrians, having learned from their Earth defeat, had developed new protocols for dealing with biologically defended planets. Instead of attempting direct conquest, they were implementing systematic sterilization from orbital distance, eliminating the planet's biological defenses through sustained energy bombardment. Captain Vasquez studied the tactical displays showing 3 Zephyrian siege vessels maintaining orbital positions around Proxima Centauri b. The ships were larger than the invasion fleet that had attacked Earth, and their energy signatures suggested they were specifically designed for biological warfare. How long can the planet's defenses hold? She asked Dr. Santos. At their current rate of sterilization bombardment, perhaps 6 months, Santos replied, her expression grim. But there's something else. The planet is transmitting genetic information, biological blueprints for defensive organisms that could survive the sterilization process. They want us to carry their evolutionary legacy to other worlds before they're completely eliminated. The prospect of witnessing the death of an entire biosphere galvanized the human crew. This wasn't just a rescue mission. It was a fight for the principle that biological diversity had the right to exist in a galaxy dominated by sterile technological civilizations. Captain Vasquez opened communication channels to the other vessels in humanity's Liberation Fleet. All ships, this is Synthesis Actual. We're moving to engage the Zephyrian siege force. Our mission parameters have changed from reconnaissance to liberation. Humanity will not stand by and watch genocide conducted in the name of technological purity. The battle for Proxima Centauri B became the first demonstration of human biomilitary capabilities. The UES Synthesis and her sister ships approached the Zephyrian siege vessels with tactics that defied conventional space warfare. Instead of maintaining formation and exchanging fire at distance, the human bioships moved like living creatures, using gravitational currents and stellar radiation as environmental factors in a three-dimensional ecosystem. The Zephyrian vessels, designed for siege warfare against planet-bound biological systems, were completely unprepared for space-based opponents that treated the vacuum between planets as a living environment. The human ships didn't just travel through space, they adapted to it, their biological systems evolving in real time to exploit conditions that the Zephyrians had never considered tactically relevant. When the UES Darwin released clouds of engineered organisms that could survive in hard vacuum and actively seek out Zephyrian hull materials, the siege vessels experienced the same biological contamination that had destroyed the Earth invasion fleet. But this time, the contamination was specifically designed as a weapon targeted at known vulnerabilities in Zephyrian biotechnology. Commander QYX-3, leading the Proxima Centauri siege force, watched in horror as his vessel's hull integrity failed under assault from organisms that shouldn't have been able to survive in space. Counsel, he transmitted desperately. The Sol, 3 natives have developed biological weapons that function in vacuum. Our siege protocols are completely ineffective against enemies who can weaponize space itself. The response from the Hegemony Council was swift and decisive. All siege operations are hereby suspended. Initiate immediate withdrawal to secure perimeter and await reinforcement with enhanced sterilization protocols. But withdrawal proved impossible. The human bioships had surrounded the Zephyrian vessels with expanding clouds of vacuum-adapted organisms that interfered with their faster-than-light navigation systems. For the first time in their species' history, Zephyrian ships were trapped by biological warfare conducted in the empty space between planets. Captain Vasquez opened communication channels to the disabled siege vessels. Commander QYX-3, this is Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Liberation Fleet. Your ships are disabled, but your crews are safe. We offer the same terms that your people received on Earth: medical assistance, technological cooperation, and the opportunity to learn from biological diversity rather than destroy it. The surrender of the Proxima Centauri siege force marked the beginning of humanity's galactic liberation campaign. Within months, similar rescue operations were launched towards 17 different star systems where biological worlds were under attack by Zephyrian forces. Each mission refined human biomilitary techniques and added new biological capabilities to the growing fleet of liberation vessels. But, perhaps more significantly, each liberated planet contributed its own unique biological defenses to the growing network of allied worlds. The fungal networks of Kepler 442b were integrated with Earth's extremophile bacteria to create new forms of biological armor. The atmospheric processors of TOI 715b were combined with Proxima Centauri b's vacuum-adapted organisms to develop life support systems that could sustain biological diversity in any environment. Within 3 years of Earth's first contact with the Zephyrian Empire, humanity was leading a galactic coalition of biologically diverse civilizations united in their resistance to technological sterilization. The coalition didn't just defend against Zephyrian attacks. It actively sought out worlds under siege and provided biological reinforcements that made conquest impossible. Dr. James Wellington, now serving as Earth's representative to the Galactic Biological Diversity Council, addressed delegates from 47 different worlds during the first Interspecies Biological Cooperation Summit. We have proven that technological advancement and biological diversity are not opposing forces. They are complementary aspects of evolutionary development that become more powerful when combined rather than separated. The Zephyrian Empire, faced with systematic defeats across multiple star systems and the complete failure of their conquest protocols, found themselves in an unprecedented situation. For the first time in their species' history, they were forced to consider the possibility that their fundamental approach to galactic expansion might be fundamentally flawed. Commander ZYX-9, now serving as a liaison between the Zephyrian Empire and the Galactic Biological Diversity Council, transmitted what would become the most significant message in Zephyrian history. Council recommend immediate cessation of all conquest operations and initiation of diplomatic contact with the Sol 3 Alliance. We are no longer the dominant technological civilization in this galaxy. We are a failed experiment in biological sterilization, and our survival may depend on learning from the very diversity we once sought to eliminate. The message marked the end of the Zephyrian Empire's expansion and the beginning of the first truly cooperative galactic civilization, one built not on technological dominance, but on the principle that biological diversity was the foundation of sustainable technological advancement. The species that had attempted to enslave humanity had instead provided the catalyst for humanity's emergence as the galaxy's greatest champions of biological freedom. 5 years after the first Zephyrian ship fell from Earth's sky, the galaxy bore little resemblance to the sterile empire that had once dominated interstellar space. The Hegemony Council's gleaming capital world of Zephyr Prime now hosted the first Galactic Congress of Biological Diversity, where representatives from over 200 worlds gathered to establish protocols for sustainable technological development based on biological cooperation rather than sterile control. President Alexandra Rodriguez, Earth's first galactic ambassador, stood before the assembled delegates in a hall that perfectly exemplified the new galactic paradigm. The chamber itself was alive, walls of engineered coral that filtered atmosphere and provided natural lighting, floors of modified fungal networks that facilitated real-time communication between different atmospheric requirements, and a ceiling of aerial plankton that served as both decoration and environmental monitoring system. 5 years ago, the Zephyrian Empire attempted to enslave Earth. Rodriguez addressed the assembly through biotranslation networks that conveyed meaning through biochemical signals comprehensible to all life forms present. Today, former Zephyrian worlds are leading the development of biological technologies that their ancestors could never have imagined. This transformation represents not the destruction of one civilization, but the evolution of all civilizations towards sustainable cooperation. The changes in former Zephyrian territories were indeed remarkable. Worlds that had been sterile technological monuments for millennia were now blooming with carefully introduced biological diversity that enhanced rather than threatened their technological capabilities. The results exceeded all projections. Planets that had required massive energy expenditures to maintain their sterile environments now generated surplus power through biological processes that grew more efficient as they diversified. Dr. Maria Santos, now director of the Galactic Institute for Biological Technology Integration, presented her latest research findings to the Congress. We have documented successful biological integration projects on 137 formerly sterile worlds. In every case, the introduction of controlled biological diversity has resulted in technological capabilities that exceed the original sterile systems by factors ranging from 300 to over 2,000%. The key to successful integration had been the development of what humanity called diversity protocols, carefully structured methods for introducing biological complexity to sterile technological systems without causing the catastrophic failures that had destroyed the original Zephyrian invasion fleet. These protocols, developed through cooperation between human researchers, recovering Zephyrian scientists, and biological intelligence networks from dozens of different worlds, represented a completely new approach to technological development. Commander ZYX 9, now serving as Minister of Biological Integration for the former Zephyrian Empire, addressed the Congress about his species' remarkable transformation. We spent 3,000 years believing that technological advancement required the elimination of biological chaos. We were wrong. Our ancestors did not achieve technological purity. They achieved technological sterility. True advancement requires embracing biological complexity, not eliminating it. The most dramatic example of this transformation was visible through the Congress Hall's living windows, which showed the surface of Zephyr Prime itself. The planet that had once been a monument to sterile technological perfection now resembled a garden world where crystalline spires grew like trees, and technological systems flowed like rivers through landscapes of unprecedented beauty and functionality. But the changes extended far beyond aesthetic improvements. The introduction of biological diversity to Zephyrian technology had solved problems that had plagued their empire for centuries. Energy generation systems that incorporated biological processes proved virtually unlimited in their capacity for growth and adaptation. Transportation networks based on biological principles could expand and reorganize themselves to meet changing needs without requiring centralized planning or resource allocation. Dr. Sarah Chun, now leading the Department of Evolutionary Technology at the Galactic Institute, presented research that revolutionized understanding of technological development itself. We have discovered that technological evolution follows the same principles as biological evolution, but only when biological diversity is present to provide adaptation pressure. Sterile technological systems become evolutionary dead ends. They can achieve high efficiency within narrow parameters, but they cannot adapt to changing conditions. This discovery explained not only the Zephyrian Empire's ultimate failure, but also the success of the biological resistance network that had developed across the galaxy. Planets with biological diversity had unconsciously been developing technological immune systems for millions of years, evolving defenses against sterile technological conquest through the same processes that drove biological adaptation and survival. The implications for galactic civilization were profound. Rather than pursuing technological advancement through control and sterility, the new galactic paradigm embraced technological development through diversity and adaptation. The result was a rapid acceleration of technological capability that exceeded anything achieved during the Zephyrian Empire's 3,000-year expansion. Captain Elena Vasquez, now Admiral of the Galactic Biological Defense Fleet, reported on the transformation of space travel itself. Bioships of the current generation can traverse distances that required weeks of travel time for Zephyrian vessels in a matter of days. More importantly, they improve their capabilities through travel rather than experiencing mechanical degradation. Our ships literally evolved to become better suited for their missions. The bioships of the new galactic civilization were marvels that combined the technological sophistication of multiple civilizations with biological adaptability that allowed them to thrive in environments that would have destroyed conventional spacecraft. These vessels could land on gas giants and extract resources through biological processes, survive in the radiation fields near neutron stars by evolving appropriate biological shielding, and even traverse the empty spaces between galaxies by entering biological hibernation states that lasted millennia while their living systems slowly evolved to adapt to intergalactic conditions. But perhaps the most significant development was the emergence of what researchers called planetary intelligence networks, cooperative systems that linked the biological intelligence of entire planets with technological capabilities that span star systems. These networks represented a form of consciousness that existed at galactic scales, capable of coordinating the development of thousands of worlds while preserving the unique biological characteristics that made each planet valuable to the overall system. Dr. Amara Okafor, now serving as Earth's primary liaison to the planetary intelligence networks, addressed the Congress about humanity's role in the new galactic order. Earth was not just the first planet to resist Zephyrian conquest. We were the first planet to demonstrate that biological diversity and technological advancement could be seamlessly integrated. Our role now is to help other worlds achieve the same integration while preserving their unique biological heritage. The final session of the Congress focused on the establishment of the Galactic Diversity Charter, a set of principles that would govern technological development throughout the galaxy for generations to come. The Charter's core principle was simple. Technological advancement must enhance rather than replace biological diversity, and any technology that required the elimination of biological complexity was inherently unsustainable. As the Congress concluded, President Rodriguez delivered the closing address that would be transmitted to every inhabited world in the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire attempted to create galactic order through sterile control. They failed because they misunderstood the nature of order itself. True order emerges from diversity, not from uniformity. True strength comes from adaptation, not from rigidity. The new galactic civilization will be built on these principles. and it will endure because it embraces change rather than fearing it. Commander ZYX 9, reflecting on the transformation of his species and their empire, added his own perspective to the historical record. My people spent millennia believing that chaos was the enemy of progress. We now understand that chaos is the foundation of progress. The species we attempted to enslave have taught us that destruction and creation are part of the same process, and that true technological mastery requires working with natural forces rather than attempting to eliminate them. In the years that followed the establishment of the Galactic Diversity Charter, the galaxy experienced a period of unprecedented growth and exploration. Biological technologies enabled civilizations to spread not just to habitable planets, but to create habitable environments in previously impossible locations. Gas giant atmospheres became floating cities where aerial organisms provided both life support and transportation. Asteroid belts were transformed into distributed ecosystems where mining operations and biological communities existed in sustainable harmony. The galaxy that had once been dominated by a single sterile empire became home to thousands of unique civilizations, each contributing their own biological and technological innovations to an ever-expanding network of cooperation and mutual enhancement. The species that had attempted to conquer Earth through technological superiority had instead provided the catalyst for humanity's emergence as the champions of galactic biological diversity, proving that the strongest civilizations were those that embraced life in all its chaotic, unpredictable, and ultimately unstoppable complexity. Earth, once facing enslavement, had become the beating heart of a galactic civilization that valued every form of life as a potential source of unprecedented technological advancement. The age of sterile conquest was over. The age of biological cooperation had begun.